If you had a YouTube channel, what would you call it?
Midlife margaritas and the menopause.
Midlife margaritas and the menopause, not hot, horny housewife.
Or hot, horny housewives. I'd probably get more viewers with hot, horny housewives. And they might be slightly disappointed if I just The menopause more than horny though, yeah.
Hot flushes.
Hot flushes. That could be the name. I love that. Yeah. Hot flushes.
I've solved it.
That's also my porn channel though, I think, as well.
I'm Claira and welcome to another episode of In Bed with Claira. Joining me in the bed today, she's sex positive, she's life empowering, and she is a midlife mindset shifter. It's the one, the only, Lou Featherstone, aka LuInLuLand.
Oh, thank you.
Crowd goes wild. Woo! How are you?
I'm so fucking good, thank you.
Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, love.
I'm very excited about this.
I'm very excited about it as well. I love it.
We've got so much to talk about, like endless amounts of stuff to talk about.
So we're going to be here for hours.
We're going to be here for hours and hours.
Settle in.
Self-love is your game, so much so that you converted an American school bus in America to go on a tour. It's called the Self-Love Revolution. What does self-love actually mean to you?
Oh my God, so many things. I got to 41 and I had given up shopping for a year because I'm a terrible shopaholic. I battled with addictions, shopping addiction for my whole life. Constantly in debt, constantly stealing money. It's just my real source of shame. And I got to 41 and I was working for social services with families in crisis. And I bought a ridiculously expensive pair of shoes from Kurt Geiger. Anyway, besides the point. And I woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and I was just like, something's got to change. This is ridiculous. I'd spent more money on these damn shoes than one of these families in crisis would have to live on for like 6 months probably. And I felt so sick. I was like, I'm going to stop. I literally woke up and went, I'm going to stop shopping for a year. And my now ex-husband was like, whatever. And I was like, no, I am. And I did. I literally made a decision. I woke up, I set up a blog on Tumblr when there was only porn and fitness and me, because Instagram wasn't even going then. I mean, I'm old. And I took a picture every day of myself. My poor son to take a picture of myself every day. I wore a different outfit for the whole year. So I was one of the very first people online ever to be doing outfit of the day. I started writing a blog, diaried it. I mean, I was like cold turkey, non-shopping. Like in those days, I had to stop buying magazines. I changed my route home from work.
Wow.
In the end of the year, and I bought 2 things in the year, but at the end of the year was the first time I was like, what's that feeling? And it was like, fucking hell, I'd achieved this like such a huge thing. It was the first time I'd ever felt proud of myself, and I felt confidence I'd never felt before. And I was 41 and I was so freaked out that I was 41 and it was the first time I'd felt confident. I was like, I'm never letting another woman in my aura, in my hemisphere wait to 41 to feel like that. That's fucking stupid. Like, that's ridiculous. And I also was like, if I can do that, I can do anything I set my mind to. I moved to America then not long after for my husband's job, and almost immediately on arriving there, we started to lose each other. But I started to really find my confidence. I found CrossFit, I found hiking, I met these badass fucking women, and American women are just so uplifting. Like, I was surrounded with these empowering, uplifting women, and I just had this journey into confidence and finding myself and finding my voice. Unfortunately, I lost my marriage along the way. That was, that's been part of the journey. I've been tinkering around online, posting styling stuff and pictures of the hikes and pictures of my salads and all that sort of shit. But when I started talking about finding my confidence in the menopause and walking into my power in middle age, that's when women started coming to my page and they were resonating with that so much, especially through lockdown. And I was finding more and more confidence as I left my husband, which was like a really weird turn of events, but that's what women really wanted. And the weirdest thing was, out of all the things I'd done online, it was me just being myself and being real. You know what it's like. You've got a big personality. I'm a vicar's daughter. Spent a long time living in everybody's boxes and under everybody else's expectations. And I'm like, fuck that for another woman. So that's what I'm kind of dedicated to. So the self-love revolution is that journey.
Lou, why do you think that so many of us struggle with self-love and loving ourselves?
Because of what we're told, because what we believe in our stupid heads, what we see on social media, and even though we see it, we know it's not all true, we know it's not all real, it's still feeding into us, the images that we're fed, the stories that we're fed, the way our mums behaved, the way we freaking damn patriarchy, the way expectations on us. I was always like Frank's daughter, Lou.
Yeah.
Then I was Oscar's mum, Lou.
Yeah.
Then I was Guy's wife, Lou. And I'm like, I'm Lou. My dad happens to be a vicar. I happen to have a kid called Oscar. I happen to have a husband called Guy. But I'm actually just Lou. But I was always somebody else's something.
So it's almost like you were a label or like an accessory or an object, but not your own person.
And I was told to, be a nice girl, simmer down, keep your voice down. Use your inside voice.
You should be seen and not heard.
Yeah, damn right. And that's what we were taught. Fuck that.
Yeah. But I think it is, it is really difficult because I think also when we look at capitalism, the way it works is also by making you dislike yourself. Because if you dislike things about yourself, then you're going to buy more shit that makes you like yourself. Whether it's cosmetics or, the dress that's going to make you look like this or the Spanx that's going to make you look like that. Other shapewear brands are available. And I'm not saying they're bad. It's different if it's a choice. Like I'm buying this because I really like it and I really want it. And it's something that's, I feel like I'm going to really enjoy as opposed to like, fuck, I hate myself or I really dislike myself. And this is going to make my life better. I'm buying it out of a place of fear and dislike for myself. I think I've definitely hated myself before in my life and it comes from so many different things, but a lot of them, it's all that external influence.
It is. I mean, I know you've struggled with eating disorders of a variety. I watch so many of my son's friends, boys and girls too. I had a badass mum. She was a probation officer. She had a career of her own. But even then, I just thought good wives made their husbands happy, and that was my job. That was my job as a wife. And he was really clear on what he wanted to do in his career, and I wasn't so sure. And he earned great salary, so it became really easy just to sort of like build my life around that and him. And he earned more than I could ever earn or ever dream of earning. So I was like, well, that makes sense then. We'll all root it in him. And then before I know it, it's been 15, 16 years, and I'm bending over backwards, trying to keep him happy, make him happy. He's got very used, I don't blame him. I really want to be clear about that. This was as much me as him. I never stood up for myself. I left it so late. It was a bit late after 25 years to go, I don't like this anymore.
Yeah, change.
It changed. He's like, well, I've been putting it's like telling him, I've let him put his feet on the table for 25 years. And then after 25 years going, I don't like it when you put your feet on the table. And he's like, but I've been doing it for 25 years. And I'm like, yes, but I don't like it. Well, at least could you put one foot on the floor? And it was just kind of like...
It becomes a battle then, and it's just sometimes I think you have to know when's the right time to bow out because it's just not going to work. Something you said then that I think is really interesting is like he earned more than you ever could or ever dreamed of. But that's not true, right? But as women, I do think that we have that, because I have that kind of perception. I look at my dad at different points in his life has been quite financially successful, and then not, but recovered again. And my granddad, it was the same. If I look at kind of my family historically, and I guess it would be because of how things were set up. But now we're in a time where women can earn just as much, if not more, than men. It's like that story is still there. And I think that's part of the patriarchy. It's like, it might not be spoken, but it's still that repressive kind of programming is still there.
And our gender stereotypes. I mean, I'm talking about my old value system, that I used to say, it's funny because my dad was a vicar, and so I used to say it's a good job, you married a vicar's daughter, because I understand vocation, because he loved his job, like he really loved his job. So he and I would use that as he deeply loves his job and it's really important he does what he needs to do, and then, I don't know, I just thought that's what a good wife was supposed to do, not sacrifice herself entirely, who I am, who I was. Like, it blows my mind that I did that now. Like, me now would just not put up with that. But it was my choice. It's not like he was forcing me into that role. It was just how we fell into that pattern, and that was an old value system that it was based around money.
Do you think as well that there's a kind of a lot of women, especially within your audience, that fell under that, where it's like they grew up believing, to be a good woman, you have to be a good wife.
Yeah.
And actually they never really stopped to ask themselves, what do I want? Who am I? What would make me happy? Because their kind of belief system, and they were taught, actually, my life is about making you happy.
Sometimes you don't know what's wrong. Sometimes it can just be a nagging discontent of something that doesn't feel quite right. And I kind of followed that. That's why I try to be really real. One of the biggest things I do is just try to be honest and be really open about my problems, my issues, the good bits, the bad bits, because that's the most important thing to me is for people to not feel alone and not, if they're asking themselves questions, where do you go for answers? But that's the brilliant thing about the internet. People have found themselves, and like things like the Me Too movement, victims of sexual assault are able to go, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
It was not just me.
And that gives you the courage to then, whether it's like you're talking about with Me Too, to then speak up, or whether it's perhaps other women finding you and hearing you say, I lived, this certain portion of my life thinking that I had to be a good wife. And I realized that wasn't what I wanted. And they're like, oh my God, it's like you put words sometimes to their feelings. And I think as soon as you have that validated by somebody else, as shit as that is, that we can't, sometimes we can do it ourselves, but when you realize that someone else has had that same experience, it's such a fucking relief. Such a relief.
And sometimes you just need someone to hear you or feel seen or understood or feel like you're not alone. But I mean, I don't know if I had found the confidence to ask for what I want, or felt like I even had was allowed to have a voice. And I really want to stress that this was not him. It was not him telling me I couldn't do it or I wasn't allowed. It was just me bobbing along, just sucking it up and going, well, he earns all the money and he's happy in his job. And, and also, of course, kids are tricky because they come along and that's a huge shift in the dynamics in your house. And it's often the women that stop work. I mean, physically you have to give birth, of course. And, I think things are changing. There are more stay-at-home dads than there was. But traditionally, it would have been the women who stayed at home, took a massive hit on their earnings. From my example, we lived in Brighton. We had a great life. My husband was commuting up and down to London. I had a kid. I found a part-time job that fitted around the kid because there was no way that he could manage that career. And, so I was on my own loads, but he loved his job. So I was like, it's okay, he loves his job. We had a nice life. He earned good money. We bought a camper van. That really changed things for us because I was like, this is not okay. Like, I'm missing you. We have no life together. You're barely here. When you're home at weekends, you're knackered and tired. We need to do a few more things together. And we bought a camper van. I swear to God, I used to say to everyone, this saved our marriage. Because I could pick him up from the station on a Friday night and we could go and have adventures at weekends. And it really did save us for a few years. So get a camper van if you're struggling.
Camper van will save your marriage. Everybody, you heard it here first. Obviously I've never been married. I don't have children, but I do think that when we have that level of like subconscious programming, it's like it keeps us in a jail of our own making that we don't even realize that we're in, because those things that they become, they're like you say, then it's a belief. It's not true that you couldn't have made more money or that you couldn't have asked for what you wanted or that you couldn't, but because you believe that you couldn't, it becomes a truth. It becomes an absolute truth. And therefore you never question it or you never push outside of it. And it's just, it's so interesting to see all the ways that actually those beliefs can completely limit our lives and hold us back from everything that we can be. And I'm very grateful that you obviously had your self-love revolution and that you're here today in the way that we know and love you. What's your best advice for people to help them learn how to love themselves?
Understanding yourself is a journey. It's not, you're not going to wake up one morning and just go, I'm fucking awesome. I mean, maybe you do. And if you do that, I that's super, but owning your shit for a start is owning your bad bits, knowing, your trickier bits as well as your good bits, being your own hype girl, so important. Surrounding yourself with people who lift you up. I've lived in America for 8.5 years, and I've been back now in the UK for about a year. And I really notice a difference between Americans and British people in lifting each other up. And I didn't even realize that. I remember when I was coming up with the idea for the bus, Instagram was growing. My son was leaving home and going on a gap year before going to college. My husband and I had separated during lockdown. I'd been in the spare room for 2 years, and it was like, you know, now what? What's next for me now? This is my damn time. Yeah. How am I going to use this? And I was like, I want to go out and meet all these women that write to me, all these women, because I share so much personal stuff online. I get a lot of personal messages back, which is incredibly empowering for me. Initially, when it first started happening and women would share their deepest, darkest secrets with me, I was like, is this really sad that they would share with a stranger?
It's much easier though.
Is it easier? Like it's easier sometimes to talk to therapists, to share your darkest bits that you know, you don't want judgment. You know, also I think I give permission to people to
an acceptance.
Yeah, an acceptance. So I was like, but the overriding theme is women are just fucking lonely and looking for connection. And I love a gang. I love being part of a gang. I love being with a bunch of women. There's nothing better than a bunch of birds. So I was like, I'd love to go and connect people. And I'd gone out on a hike with a mate, and on the way back, we saw this old bus by the side of the road. And I was like, oh, but I was like, also, I could move out the house because the spare room was getting really stressful, but I could move into that, but then also I could take it on tour around America and just preach self-love. That night I went home and I was like, it was pouring with rain, a massive storm. We lived in a forest. I don't know where my ex-husband and my son were, but there was a huge storm and a tree fell down. It was a 150-year-old tree. The sound it made was fucking wild. Anyway, it clipped to the edge of the house. If it had fallen on the house, I would be dead. But it clipped the edge of the house. I was like, it's a fucking sign. I've got to buy the bus. I was like, if I buy this bus, you know, I could throw events out of the bus and I could connect all these women in their local area, and then I'll move on to the next place and then I'll connect women and that could help them find each other. In America, I'm like, I've seen this bus. I need to I had no money. I was like, how am I going to get the bus? I crowdfund the bus. And in America, I'm like, so I drew up a presentation. I sent it out to family and friends. And this is in America, they're like, fuck yeah, oh my God, here's £1,000, here's $1,000. Well, I mean, can you imagine doing that, going down the pub and going, I might buy an old bus, it's probably going to break down.
It's £2.
They'd be like, no, British people are like, have you seen the price of petrol? You know, the fucking traffic's terrible. When we first moved to America, people would be like, oh, you know, hi, welcome to America. And they'd go, oh my God, you should borrow my ski chalet. You should borrow my beach house. And me and my ex were like, do they want to sleep with us? Like, British people are like, why? Americans are just like really generous like that. But the culture's so different. They're like rooted in entrepreneurship. They celebrate that. And they celebrate every damn thing. Whereas British people are like, meh.
You obviously, you mentioned like your separation from your husband, etc. How important was that time, spending time on your own and being a single person, I'm guessing for the first time in years? Like, how important was that ever?
Ever. I had a boyfriend since I was 11 years old.
Wow.
I overlapped everyone. I've never been faithful to a single person. Overlapped every boy. Used to have 3 or 4. I'd have one lined up, and I had 3 or 4 at a time. We'll hedge my bets. I don't know. It's just always been my thing. I had some slut years, that's for sure. No regrets, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. And what's the point? I'm really not a believer in regrets.
So you'd never been single, you had a boyfriend since you were 11, and then suddenly you find yourself as single. Did you have a period then without like kind of dating? Have you had that?
Yeah. It's too much. It was all a bit much. I loved it. I'd still be driving now if I could. I wish I could.
So during that time, it was like men out, I just want to celebrate being a woman and spending time with women.
It was just the self-love revolution, baby. Just me and the open road. I downloaded Tinder, but only for fun, to see what the different men look like in different states, just to see like, I haven't even got a clue. I can't operate the app. This is hysterical. And then I just got a couple of messages I'd delete, and I'd go, delete the app. I'm not ready for that.
Because I do think there is this thing where as women, we center like men and relationships as the most important thing. It can easily become an obsession, and it is like a real talking point. Even when we were younger, it was like getting a boyfriend. Like it became so important.
Talk about, right?
But I think it's a real shame, because actually by centering men and relationships as the most important thing that we can achieve, we kind of and this is not all women, of course, but I think for a lot of us, we just negate the fact that there are so many other things that we could pursue. Like, who are we as people? What do we have to offer the world? I just look at myself, and now I'm addressing, my anxious attachment style and how that shows up in relationships, how my relationship with my dad shows up in, my relationships, and choosing unavailable men. But why has that been so important to me? Like, because men are great, but I'm great as well.
That's the key, right? I would have been a better wife if I had spoken up for what I needed and been able to ask for what I needed. I would have been a better wife and mum. I would have been a better example to my son. I would have been a better wife because I would have been probably happier. We'd probably still be together. That's the irony. I equated saying what I wanted with, that being wrong, or me not having value, and my voice not having value, or my opinion not having value.
You were just in this kind of, no, this is how it's done, like this tunnel vision, without asking any questions about how it made you feel, whether it was good, whether it's what you want, whether it's just like, no, this is how you be, this is how you do a relationship, this is how you're a good wife, this is how you act because you're a good husband, this is how I act because I'm a good wife and mother, and that's it. And aren't we great? I'm divorced now.
We used to be the couple that people came to and were like, how'd you do it? How do you seem to have such a great relationship? And we did. I didn't feel unhappy at the time. That's the thing, that was the tricky bit. I thought we were nailing it, and I was being a really good wife because we were happy. Sometimes I wonder if it would just be easier if one of us cheated, or I don't know, if something had happened like that. Maybe it would be easier, I don't.
You talk about as well, you had vagina therapy. I don't know what vagina therapy exactly is. I'm sure you can tell us. And vagina therapy awakened you because you realised how powerful your vagina was. And not just in a physical sense, because it's quite a big muscle.
It's quite a big muscle. Long story short, I went to a women's group in Portland, and they had this vagina therapist coming to talk. She's written a couple of books. Her name is Tammy Kent. She's got the most amazing TED talk called
It'd be better if it was Tammy Kent with a U.
She's Tammy Kent. She's got an amazing TED talk called The Vagina Whisperer.
Yeah.
And she believes that our power, our trauma, our stress, our emotions are all stored in our sort of pelvic bowl and in our vulvic area here. She basically, I hate that when I describe it like this. She was cringe every time if she ever hears me say it. She basically believes all that stress and all that trauma is, you've got to get it out, you've got to release it. So she basically fingers you for about $1,000 and to release all of those things or help move your energy around in there. But she wasn't doing that night. She was just doing a meditation, and I went along. I didn't want to go. All the best things have happened to me when I don't want to do them. Always. Why does that happen? I don't know. But I went along. I thought we were getting filmed secretly. Everybody's sitting there with their eyes closed, meditating to their vaginas, and I've got one eye going, what the fuck is happening right now? But I was like, all right, come on, say yes to everything. That's my motto at the time, was say yes to everything. And I cannot to this day tell you what she said. I remember visualizing rooting my vagina into Mother Earth.
Plugging it in. That's the only thing I can remember that she said. But as I left that night, I felt differently. I felt different. In your vagina?
In my whole soul. Area? No, in my whole soul. Something shifted in me.
Did you feel it physically in that area and then it shifted, or you didn't feel anything there? It was just a general shift?
Didn't feel anything, but as I left, I could feel in me that something had shifted. Right, okay. Still to this day, can't put my finger on it. Left there, next morning, came out of the bedroom, sauntered into the kitchen, and my husband and son were sitting at the breakfast bar, and they literally looked at me and went, what is up with you? And I hadn't even spoken. And I went, I don't know, but me and my vagina feel incredibly powerful and anything could happen. And they just were like, oh my God. My son's like, stop speaking right now.
You do talk about sex, you talk about masturbation, you talk about sex toys, menopause. They're topics which can often be shame-inducing. People consider them taboo. Have you always felt confident and comfortable talking about these topics? Or is it just now you've reached a point where it's like, I need to?
It's all wrapped up in the same thing. So as I've started to find my confidence, my body changed quite significantly. And I was hiking one day with my girls, with my squad, and I got to the top of a volcano and took my clothes off to take a picture of my naked ass. And I got a dick pic. I got my first dick pic I'd ever had in my life, because when I met my husband, we didn't even have mobile phones.
Well, so you posted the naked picture of you and someone sent you a dick pic in
response?
response?
Yeah, a 26-year-old from the gym sent me within half an hour of me posting the naked picture. I'd never had a dick pic in my life. Literally dropped my phone on the floor, then forwarded it to all my mates going, I got a fucking dick pic! And I was like, I got a dick pic. And part of my marriage that we really neglected had been our sex life. When we met, it just was never a huge thing for us. It was like, I had all the sex before I met him, so I just thought I'd maybe used up all my sex. And and so I'd probably had more sex than most people had had in most of their life. And so that was probably my allowance done. And we were happy in so many other ways. And it was great in so many other ways. I was like, oh, wow. And I'd put that part of me to one side, like the slut side of me, I just had abandoned. And this dick pic was the first time in many, many years I felt horny again.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Because most times, I mean, I've been sent a lot of dick pics over the years and I find them horrifying, like for me personally, and unsolicited ones. And it is now a crime.
It is now a crime. I would like to say this is not an invitation to send anybody a dick pic unless they want it.
No dick pic.
For me, it changed my life, and I hate the fact that this dick, and it wasn't even a great dick, gave me the power. It was more the fact that someone wanted to send me a dick pic. I was invisible in my mid to late 40s at this point. I felt invisible, and I was like, and it triggered something in me. And I had never really been a huge wanker. I hadn't had a vibrator since a rabbit back in the day. The next day, I ended up going to a sex shop to get
a dick pic. The next day,
went to get a vibrator. My friend had been in court for a hit and run. She hadn't hit a person, she'd hit a thing, but in America it's the same charge. It was a really awful experience for her. So we stopped at the sex shop on the way home.
Obviously, as you do.
She had a cute little dog called Coco, this little King Charles Spaniel. We go in the sex shop, the fucking dog did a shit in the sex shop. But we didn't realise before we'd trodden the shit around the whole sex shop. So in a moment of, oh shit, she's on her hands and knees trying to mop up the shit, and I grabbed the biggest neonist, I went, that looks cute. So I grabbed the vibrator, buy this freaking great big thing, it was called the Big Boss, buy the Big Boss, go rushing home with this vibrator. I'm like so excited. Bought batteries on the way home because it's been so long since I've had a vibrator. I realise now that it's a USB charging thing. Yeah. Get home, get it out, and went, oh, okay. So plug it in. Anyway, the fucking thing took so long to charge. Apparently a watch vibrator never charges. I was standing over this vibrator going, charge motherfucker, charge motherfucker, charge motherfucker. Wouldn't charge. So I was like, go away and have a cup of tea, it'll charge. I'm sitting on the sofa, and just as my son walks through the front door from school, this vibrator starts going, I'm like running across the sitting room going, ah! Anyway, that bloody kid hung around all night. I was like, you going out? You going out? You going out to play? Are you going out? And he's like, no, let's watch something on telly. And I'm like, I really want to go with my vibrator.
When you're in that place where you're like horny and you've already decided you're going to masturbate, it's really difficult to think about or concentrate on anything else because it stays in the back of your mind. It's like for me, it's like a switch has been flicked, and until
I gotta do it. I hadn't even masturbated for about 10 years at this point.
So you've done nothing.
Nothing.
So you had no sex
or
masturbation.
No.
You hadn't had an orgasm for 10 years.
Me, the horniest vicar's daughter out there. That's what I mean. I put so much of myself
in a box.
I
can't imagine like not having an orgasm for 10 years. I can imagine maybe not having sex for 10 years. I could probably cope without having sex, but like especially masturbation, I
can barely go back 3 hours now.
Yeah. So this was the awakening.
This is the awakening.
What happened? So
then he finally went to bed, and then bloody kid. Yes. And then I made myself a gin and tonic, get into bed. My husband was away working, couldn't get it in. Tried again. Was trying to get this freaking great big thing in with no lube.
You went from 0 to 100.
Well, that's what the gynecologist said the next morning. She's like, yeah, you need to probably start smaller and work your way up, especially if nothing's been in there for a little while. And so that began a series of events that ended up with me moving into the spare bedroom.
Because you were just masturbating all the time. Your husband's like, I've had enough, get out.
I'm like, I'm leaving you, and I'm moving into the spare room. And as I moved into the spare room, I talked about vibrators online. I got approached by a vibrator company talking about did I want to become an advocate for them. And I was like, sure, yeah, okay. And they sent me a huge box of vibrators. Like, it was like about 25 different ones. So it was I think it arrived 2 days after I separated. I moved into the spare room just as these vibrators arrived. I spent the next 6 months just wanking myself into the woman you see before you now, but it gave me so much confidence. Like, I completely found this confidence in myself and my body. Again, it'd been the first time in my whole life this had been about me, and this pleasure in my own body became mine. It wasn't about pleasing everybody. I mean, I was really good. I'm good at sex. I had a lot of practice over the years. There were some wasted talents all those years. I tucked them away. It was the first time this had been about me and that clit sucker.
Why is talking about masturbation and sex toys so important to you personally? And what do you feel like it gives to women? Because for me at school, you don't talk about masturbation. No, it's shame inducing. It's something that, you know, women kind of shied away from. We are so much better now, thank God, at talking about it. But it meant that for years, not just me, because I've had this conversation with loads of my friends, but we were all having fucking shit sex. We didn't know how to explore our own bodies. And when we did know what felt good to us, we didn't know how to express that or have the confidence necessarily to say that to the people that we were having sex with. So what do you kind of say to women about sex toys and masturbation? Because I guess, you know, if you've grown up with feeling like that's taboo and you shouldn't say it out loud.
Shame inducing for a lot of women. So many women can't even so much as look at themselves in the mirror. Never mind dare touch themselves. But it's all wrapped up together, right? It's all the same thing. If you come into a relationship with confidence in your body and knowing what you like and knowing what to ask for and able to communicate that, that's going to make you a way better partner, I think. I remember having this conversation with a really close friend recently, and I bought her a vibrator and went, please just try it. I mean, she's, you know, steeped in Roman Catholic convent school, all the shame, and she started to use this vibrator and had a bit of confidence. She finally went on a date with someone and she said, you know what he finds the sexiest is that I'm confident and I know what I want. And I don't know, I took naked pictures of myself, not to send to anybody else, but I was bored in my bedroom by myself. I just started to feel sexier by nice underwear for literally no one but myself, which felt really dumb at the beginning. But I'm like, when I do get a boyfriend, they're going to be so grateful.
But I think there's also something in that energy, like embodying that kind of energy, and not you don't need to use that energy to have sex with anybody else.
No.
But it makes you feel confident, and it makes you feel, you know, like
it's
unstoppable and empowered. And yeah, it's an incredible thing. What's one thing that you wish that everyone knew about masturbation?
Don't race for an orgasm. Enjoy the journey. Take your time. Know what you like. I think it's the one thing we don't create time for. It's certainly as a busy mum or a busy human, not even a busy mum, but as a busy human, it's hard to find time to do it. And if you do, I mean, I think that's why I quite like the clit sucker, because it's fast and furious. But it can be fast and furious. If I've only got 5 minutes, I can get it done, or I can make it last 2 hours.
Depends if I've got time in my schedule.
Depends if I've got time. But as a busy human being with jobs and kids and husbands and whatever, making time for a wank is not necessarily always on your to-do list, but it's so powerful just to have something that's for you and for yourself. And you will find, if you find a confidence with that and that in your body like that, you know, that's only going to spill out into the rest of your life, and it's going to spill out into your relationships. If a man doesn't want you to come and ask for what you want, or at least the bare minimum know what you don't like, or be able to say, I don't like that, I do like this, can we try this, can we try that? It just has such a massive knock-on effect.
Yeah, and I think if guys aren't asking those questions, or if they're not open to having feedback, then you probably shouldn't be having sex with them.
And that's also, it's a massive question you've got to ask yourself.
Because otherwise, how can you really enjoy it? If someone's not willing to take feedback, then it's like, what are we actually doing here, really? Why do you think it is that as women, we find it so difficult to talk openly and honestly about sex, when it's something that pretty much 99% of us, I'm guessing, will do at some point in our life?
Even 5 years ago, this would have been, you know, outrageous, right? Would have been outrageous. And it still is to some people. You know, some people find it really difficult. My brother does not follow me online. He finds it really difficult. You know, and his wife's like, he's a bit prudish. It's upbringing, right? It's what we're told. If you slept with people at school or you liked that, I mean, we weren't even allowed to claim that you liked it. It's only in recent years women were allowed to say that they were involved in having pleasure, or allowed permission to have, accept pleasure or have a say in it. It was always about men. Everything's always been about men, and shame. Thank God, as you say, that that's changing. And people like you and me, I hope, are making it more talk aboutable.
Yeah, talk aboutable. And I think it's really important. And it's not just important for women, it's important for men as well, because yes, there are going to be guys out there who, are just having sex for the sake of their own pleasure, and that's all they really care about. But there's also men out there who do genuinely care, and who do, even if they're having casual sex, they want to make sure that the person they're having casual sex with is having a good time, because I think there's nothing more pleasurable than knowing that the person that you're with is enjoying what's going on. Like,
what's the point?
That kind of exchange. So I think, that good men want your feedback. Good men want to give you pleasure, and those good men do exist. And I think that's important to say.
There's so many good men out there. There's lots of rotten humans. I know a lot of dodgy birds, and I know a lot of dodgy geezers, but there's some really good men out there, and there's a lot of men who they're as conditioned as we are into their roles. Toxicity, they've got to be the provider, they've got to do this, they've got to do that, I've got to provide, and that is as inbred in them as our bullshit. Over the last few years, the more I talk about it, the more I do talks, I've had more men try to, how do I show up better for my wife? How do I show up better for my daughters? How do I show up better for my colleagues at work? How do I be better? How do I be more vulnerable?
Like we said, there's loads of great men, and there are some men who are like receptive and who want to learn and who want things to be different. But there is also this online movement, and I'm sure you've had them show up in your comments. I certainly have had them show up in my comments on a regular basis, of men who are, like, women should have a low body count because from the beginning of the dawn of time, a guy told me this week, men have found, it was something like, from the dawn of time, men have found women who aren't promiscuous attractive, and women have found tall men attractive. It's just a preference, and promiscuous women are disgusting, and meh, meh, meh. I'd never wife a woman with a high body count. Like, all of these kind of stupid things that it's actually, I think once you get older, you're like, if you can just find somebody that you actually like and get on with and gel with and have good sex with, who gives a fuck about their past or their history? Because everyone has got one, I wanted to talk about menopause. I recently turned 40, and I really genuinely don't know anything about menopause. Perhaps that's because I didn't have my mum growing up, so I haven't, had a woman close to me go through menopause that I've kind of witnessed, and maybe they've spoken to me about it. But literally, the things that I know about menopause, and I've written them down: hot flushes, I know you get those; dry vagina, these are the things that I've heard; and HRT, hormone replacement treatment. What do you wish that all women knew about menopause, and why is it such a secret?
I mean, those things are all true, right? Well, HRT is a choice. Yeah. And there's a lot of shame around HRT. People think they're failing if they take HRT. The worst thing I think with menopause for me was the rages. You get these incredible mad rages, and the mind fog. It takes at least 6 middle-aged women in a group to finish a sentence. But the one thing I will tell you is, it can be awful. Chances are parts of it might be a bit of a challenge, but it can be the biggest freaking liberating, most exciting chapter of your life. Not everybody has it at the same time. Most people, the sort of majority, have hit menopause late 40s, early 50s. Now, the chances are your kids are leaving home, you've done your parenting bit, and there is a huge grief associated with it. This is the end of your childbearing years, and for a lot of women, that's really hard for them to sort of like move on. Fucking huge hormonal shift in you. And so it is associated with that. But also, the kids are fucking off. You're not having any more periods. I got hornier. I discovered my horny again. Actually, I've been part of research that proves that, a huge majority of women actually do find themselves hornier. And while you're a bit drier, that's what lube is for. We've had a fucking period every month since we were about 13. Are you joking me? Our tits grow, our hips broaden. We are genetically built to accommodate somebody else. Fuck that. This is now about us. This is the chapter that's about you, and you can either seize that and make it your bitch, or you can lie down and just dry up. It's coming at a time where your body, again, you're out of control of your body.
Yeah.
You know, there's some things you just cannot change. The aging process is hard. Again, we're looking at outdated values of how we look when we get older. And, you know, that's a massive part of why I run around without my clothes on for a lot of the time. I'm like, I look fucking bad, look better than I've ever looked. I'm more confident than I've ever looked. I'm hornier than I've ever been. I'm like, I don't know.
You're really selling it to me.
I don't know which bit of this is not good for me.
Roll on menopause.
You know? You wake up around mid to late 40s one day and you just give less fucks. Like, it just happens. It's a thing. It's a natural thing. You just give less fucks. I mean, I'd be dangerous if I gave any less fucks, I think. I think it's associated with a midlife crisis, right? Because women wake up, they give slightly less fucks. The kids are all leaving home. You're coming into this period in your life. You're like, what the fuck is next? And you're left lying in bed next to this person going, oh. Okay, it's just me and you now. Like, is this it for the rest of our lives? And you're like, do I want that? Is this it now? So that's why a lot of women have like started to just go, okay, no. The men just sort of like, women are ready for the next chapter. We are just used to change. It's what we do. It's our superpower. Men are like, I just want to go to a car show and, you know, watch a dodgy film. Women are like, no, I want to go. The women I know are like,
I'm ready
let's
to go.
climb mountains. Let's go on girls' trips. Let's do all these things. The men are like, I'm just knackered. I'm just sit on the sofa for the rest of their lives. Whereas women are like, this is the next bit for me.
And I think it's so important to hear the people who, you know, have experienced menopause or experiencing menopause talk about it in a positive light. And because every single thing you experience in life has positives and negatives, right?
Of course.
I know that the experience can be very different for different people. So I kind of liken it to hearing childbirth stories, you know, like some people's are horrific. And if you only hear the horrific ones, you're filled with fear and worry. Whereas, you know, there's another side of things where people have had really positive experiences and really great experiences. So with menopause, it's kind of one of those things that it's almost like until it happens to you, it has been shrouded in mystery, whereas now, like, we're having this conversation right now, and it means that as a woman you have a different outlook on life rather than have these things that you know are going to happen to you. I don't really know what it is.
So many women are like, I just thought I was getting Alzheimer's. I thought I was getting dementia. In your late 40s, you just start forgetting things. And it's a massive part of it. The brain fog is really scary. You have these mad rages that come from nowhere. You're like, what's happening to me? If we are talking about these things like they're normal and they're not shameful, you're like, okay, I'm starting to forget my memory. Probably maybe it's menopause. And you can get checked and you know where you are, and you can get HRT, or you can adjust your hormones, or you can take your supplements that are gonna help all these things. You can be prepared.
Yeah, and proactive. And I think that's really important. You mentioned earlier that, like, prior to having, I guess, this kind of like awakening on all levels, that you felt invisible. And there is that kind of idea, I guess, that once women reach a certain age, which looking back on films that I grew up watching when I was a kid was probably 40. It's like once a woman reaches 40, she becomes invisible. You know, men carry on to be silver foxes and these desirable creatures, and women just kind of fade away in the background, a bit like Gollum. You obviously haven't become invisible at all, and you're making sure that that doesn't happen.
I think I've got worse. I'm more like in your face than I've ever been.
Yeah.
I've always been loud, but I think that's part of why I run around naked all the time. I'm like, it gives me a strength and it gives other women a strength, and I'm like, I refuse to feel invisible or for other women to feel invisible.
How is the sex that you have now in this era of your life with all of that confidence versus the sex that you used to have? What's the kind of difference between the two?
I'm having some.
Right, okay, yeah.
So that's quite exciting. Starting all over again is pretty, it's liberating. It's good. And it's so different because I ask for what I want. I get what I need. The emphasis is not on end goal. It's like, you know, let's just spend a few hours, you know, let's just open a bottle of wine and spend the day getting laid and running around naked. It's great. It's good.
Which is much better than, you know, some of the sexual experiences you have when you're younger, where you're lucky if you get 5 minutes.
Oh my God. And you're like, oh, you know, and he doesn't
hiding
see
under
my
the cover.
tits. Yeah, and he doesn't see my tits. I'm like, I'm 53 and this is what you're getting.
Do men get better at sex with age? Please say yes or no.
I have, well, yeah, apparently so.
She's found a good one.
You heard it here first.
Thank you very much.
I would not sleep with a younger guy, I don't think. They'd have to be older. Why do you want to muck around with someone who can't even find the right hole?
Definitely had that experience before. What's one thing, Lou, that you wish everyone knew about sex?
Oh, how fucking freeing it is to enjoy it. That you can just, it's okay to enjoy it. That it's okay.
I think that's an important message,
Yeah.
you know, that it's okay to actually enjoy it, to let go of, you know, worrying about what you look like or, you know, what you look like in a certain position or any of that stuff, and just be like, what do I enjoy? Am I enjoying this? What would be better? And communicating that and just having a good time.
Enjoy it. Life's too short. Orgasms are brilliant and they're really good for you. Why wouldn't you want as many as you could get?
What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you in bed?
Gotta be when you let out a little fart.
What, as in a fanny fart or a...
Oh no, the queefs, I mean, that's just...
That's their fault anyway.
That's
You're full of air.
Gotta be a cheeky fart at the wrong moment. Farts, I don't know why, but farts still, they make me chuckle when I'm by myself. But if I'm with someone, I still try to hold them in. I haven't quite let go with the farting, pardon the pun.
What is the wildest thing you've ever done in bed?
Probably a, you know, many people situation. An orgy. It wasn't an orgy. Done a couple of threesomes back in the day.
I always wonder how that works because of the logistics.
It can get very confusing, and you've got to be you need to be quite secure in that situation, in those situations. I had a really odd encounter with a man with the oddest dick once. It was shaped like an egg, and he was jerking himself off, and it was so small he couldn't do it like that. He had to do it like that. That was definitely, I don't know if you call that a highlight, but I'll never forget that. I called him the egg for years.
Does size matter?
No, confidence matters. Although the egg was, no.
And I think, like you said earlier, there is someone for everyone. So like, even if it doesn't, that particular, you know, size or shape doesn't work for you, it's gonna work for somebody else. What has been your best sexual experience ever?
Do you know what I love the most? Hotel sex. I love sex in a hotel. Does something to me.
Is that your fantasy? Have you got one?
I'm really feeling a trip to Berlin, a sex club in Berlin coming on. I belong to a WhatsApp group of a lot of sex influencers and sex workers and sex educators. It is the most fun WhatsApp group ever. I skulk about feeling really lame. I'm like, oh yeah, I've slept with loads of people over the years, you know, I've had threesomes. These women are so empowered. These humans are so empowered. I'm like, can you invite me to one of your parties? They'll nip off and make content for their OnlyFans and all their channels. And I'm like, I want an OnlyFans channel. I want to come. They will hire these beautiful houses and shoot content together all weekend. And then we meet up and have lunches, and I just like bob in like the middle-aged sex influencer on the end. And they've all been fucking each other like mad, and I'm like, I want a bit of that.
Would you do that? Would you do an OnlyFans?
I don't know. Maybe after my dad's gone. Sorry, Dad.
It's still there.
We never cease this.
The vicar's still there on the shoulder. What's your best advice for being good in bed?
Confidence. I know that I just say it like it's really easy, and I know it's really not, but asking for what you want, knowing what you want, stand up straight, take your clothes off, get in there.
Communication. What's your best advice for being confident naked? Because we know you like to be naked often.
Be naked, like get used to your body, know your body, take pictures of yourself, feel sexy. If you're in the moment, imagine what you'd look like in a porn film. Like, just go for it. Just shoulders back, get on top. Whoop, whoop.
Woo, woo.
Get sexy underwear, like, you know, make an effort.
The reverse cowgirls coming through. A lot of women have an issue with their vulva, don't they?
Oh my God, so many women. I now work with a couple of vagina therapists doing vulva casting, and they do women's circles where they, you know, just look at your vulva and knowing where your bits are. I mean, you talk about men not knowing where holes are. Lots of women don't know where their holes are. If you don't know where your holes are and what you like, how are you going to
guide anyone else? You've
got to know what you want first. Always, every point of this, in bed, in life, in motherhood, in menopause, knowing yourself, accepting that, all those bad bits, accepting all of it and owning it all. That is the key to all of it. Self-love revolution, baby.
Self-love revolution, baby. And I think that it's important to say that all vulvas are normal vulvas. Like, there's no right or wrong. Everyone's is different, and there's not just one type that you might have seen in like porn films or whatever. There's so many different types of vulvas, and I think that, you know, not just for women, also for men as well. Men need to know that. It's like, they don't all look the same. They all look so fucking different. That's like saying all dicks look the same. They don't. They're all different sizes, shapes.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with yours. It's
Nothing
great.
wrong with it.
It's great.
Ace. Learn to love it. Look at it. Love it. Look at it. Look at it. Sit in front of the mirror and look at the damn thing. Someone was telling me about breastgasms the other day. So that's my new obsession, is having an orgasm through your breasts. Literally went to a workshop with like 20 other women. They all just sat round, just feeling up their tits, all having orgasms just from their breasts.
Some people can just sit there and have an orgasm.
I had one on a bus once. I get them in the gym.
I don't get orgasms in the gym.
That's because you're strong. This is when I very first started weightlifting. I had a phase where I was weightlifting, and I went for a trial, and there was this really hot Serbian bodybuilder, like full on proper, spray tan bodybuilder, like jacked at all shit. He had me hanging from a bar, just lifting my knees, just doing really simple knee raise. And I went, oh my God, I think I just had an orgasm. And I'm like, it's a trial. This gym's quite small. I was like, what the fuck? And when you've had one, often then there's a lot more to follow. I swear I must have had 12 or 13 orgasms in this one trial session at the gym. Came out, was supposed to go for lunch for a girlfriend. She went, are we ready for lunch? I went, I think I need to go home and lie down. She was like, what? And I went, I swear to God, I just had 13 orgasms in the gym. It's the most awkward hour of my life. And she was like, you absolute liar. And I went, I swear to God, we Googled it. It's a thing called a coregasm. And it's just the muscles really deep inside. I get them when I do rope climbs.
I want to do a coregasm.
I was hanging from the gym and I'm on the rope at the top. It was the first time I ever managed a rope climb at CrossFit. And there was the whole class is standing underneath me going, yes, fuck yes. And I'm hanging from a rope having a fucking orgasm going, I'll be down in a second.
Like shaking. And then it's not because your arms are aching.
Clapping. And that probably was one of the funniest moments of my life I'll never forget.
Right, new goal to add to my 2024 list.
There you go,
coregasms. If anyone sees me in the gym acting weird from now on, you know why. What can ruin the moment for you?
Bad hygiene.
Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, no, it's not good. There's no excuse for bad hygiene. It doesn't cost anything to wash a cock. No.
In that scenario, do you just say to that person, sorry, no?
Back in the day, I wouldn't have had the confidence to. Now I would.
Wash your dicks and your balls and your cracks.
And your puss, but not with soap, because it's magic and it cleans itself.
Don't mess with the pH. Have you ever faked an orgasm?
Yeah. Not anymore, I wouldn't. But back in the old days, I have. I don't think I'd mind if I didn't even come now.
I think as long as the sex is good, you don't always need to have an orgasm. Sometimes, like for love nor money, it's not because it's not really good or you're not really enjoying it. It's just not going to happen.
Also, if you're trying that hard, sometimes it just doesn't happen because you're trying too hard, I think. If you've made me laugh and you treat me with respect, I'm not that bothered, I don't think. I'll go home and finish myself off if I need to, or I'll give you a vibrator at the end and you can finish it off if you can't do it. But
she'll finish herself off. I love it. But I do that as well. Sometimes I think it's just like, it hasn't quite happened, but I've really enjoyed it, but I'm almost there. So let's just, let's do this last bit together. Ta-da!
It's not all on you, it's both of us, right?
Lou, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love you. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Me.
It's been great. Let's go to sleep now.
Okay,
obviously that's what we do.
Okay.
Now. And we can talk more about that.
I might have to take my hat off.
Oh, lovely. Do you snore?
Oh, I really snore. Snore and a twitch.
I'll give you an elbow.
Just roll me over.